Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Build a Day. Today we are building a gatehouse. I really like this build. It took so long to figure out how to get it to work. When you look at it, you're like, oh, this, doesn't look too complicated. Yeah, it's a little bit more complicated than it looks. Mostly the roof. Everything else is really pretty alright. But it's mostly the roof. And that's because it's a cone, right? The gradient of said cone changes. So the gradient becomes a lot steeper, which is fun. And it's obviously a cone, so it's circular. Minecraft is not designed, shall we say, for circles, given that it's entirely made out of cubes. So that was interesting. But then when I got it working, it was the best feeling ever. It was like everything just clicked, and I was like looking at Disney castles, like the actual like Disney castle and stuff, and that sort of style architecture, 19th century German castles. Well, technically not castles, but that's getting pedantic. And I was looking at them and going, what do they have? And I was trying to do something interesting with the tower, and then I realized a lot of them have this sort of like below the roof, they got like a little section, and then that goes in and there's like an overhang to the rest of the tower. So I'll try that, and then I was like, okay, that looks a bit better. And then I got this sort of the trim working around the proper roof perfectly. I got that working, and then that basically all just made it work, because the trim, it sort of leads down. It's like the end of that sort of curve on the cone. So it all just sort of flows in, which it didn't have before. So adding that was also a really good step. And then as you'll see, I needed to figure out how to sort of split one of the roofs in two. Luckily that wasn't too hard, because obviously I'd already figured out how the roofs worked by that point, and it was a pretty simple change, as was texturing them, because you just spin around in a circle all the way up. So that was pretty useful, I would say. Anyway, other than all of the complications building this thing, designing this thing, it was a pretty smooth build. Everything went pretty well, I would say. The only complications I had was when I was trying to take the screenshots of it after recording the video. So the build went fine. It went absolutely perfectly. So I just did some in-head mathematics, and I got two towers lined up by eyeballing it. Don't do that if you're like in construction. Don't eyeball it, because you'll get it wrong. Use a tape measure or something. But here we are, sort of figuring out how to get that sort of split roof. And a couple of the images that I was looking at had this sort of design, and trying to figure out how to get this working was not the most complicated. As I said, I already figured out how to sort of do the roofs, so I just needed to figure out how much to move it up by. Pop in a sort of frame, fill in the frame, put in the windows, etc. And then it was basically done. So yeah, that was a little less stressful than trying to get the rest of it done. And then after doing that, I could actually work on like the gate, you know, because it's supposed to be a gatehouse. It needs a gate somewhere in there. So I started working on that now. Took off these windows and their details because obviously they'd be in the way. I then blocked out the arch, realised that I'd need to make it a little bit thicker because I wanted to portcullis in there, and you can't really have one that looks good on a one block arch. So I popped in the changes, put in the portcullis, which is that like crosshatch thingy, in the actual gate. And then I rounded off the arch and added crenellations because you need those because it's a gatehouse and you need to be able to defend it, even if it's more, you know, an 18th century style and a cannon would basically just destroy it. But you know, whatever. But yeah, now after doing that, I popped in some texturing, just a light sprinkling. You know, I'd say relatively new build, so I popped in the percentages. I think I had 5% cracked and mossy stone bricks, and then the top was just stripped, warped hyphae, I think, warped block and cyan concrete powder. So that was that. I then added a path, you know. Can't really have a gate if you don't have a path, you know, despite the fact this thing has no wall connecting to it, so you could just walk around it, but, you know, added a path in, some foliage, and then it was basically just done from that point. I think I went through with some buttons, added some stones and stuff, but other than that, it was basically done. There we go. Anyway, the video is over. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you tomorrow.